All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raf. I've got two good friends joining me this week. Welcome to your favorite cybersecurity podcast. Happy Tuesday when you're listening to this. And this is going to be another one of those fun episodes where we just grab some friends. We'll talk about something interesting, and a topic always rears its head. Let's do some quick intros. We'll start with Michael. You go first.
Hey, Raf, thanks for having us, man. Good to see you. Michael Farnum, CEO of Cybersec Community, co-founder of Cybersec Community, along with my buddy Sam here.
Okay, Sam, your turn.
Yeah, so I'm co-founder here, and I do a whole lot less than Michael does, but I am responsible for the content and speaker lineup and all that kind of good stuff for the conference that we do. And I also have a day job, so I work for Dragos during the day, and have been in the industrial sector for a very long time now.
Yeah, you've been on the OT side for a bit. By the way, congrats on the journey there. That's been pretty
Thank
cool
you.
to watch. That's
Thanks. No, it's been great.
I love watching the trajectory of that organization because it's like small, scrappy, bigger, struggle, bigger still. Finding purpose. I love it. It's nice to see that there's still focus being paid to something that's actually kind of a big problem. Let's dive in. So we're for those of you guys that weren't listening, that's not the three of us here. Before we hit record, we said, okay, how do we want to couch this? What do we want to talk about? And Sam had this great quote and he starts talking about GUIs. I think most of the things in GUI are bullshit. I was like, that's the name of the podcast. All right, so, Sam, you want to go ahead and kick that off? Because that was a good rant. Let's wind that back and just like, I'm going to wind you up and let you go.
Yeah, so it really came from Michael had a snippet out there, a video out there talking about this and comparing value of the GUI to the practitioner, essentially, art versus value. And it was a good message. But for me, the thing is, this is my seventh startup that I've done at Dragos, right? I have seen everything from a GUI with absolutely nothing behind it, a total marketing ploy to try to hook people, right? I've seen, movie producing backgrounds do really cool GUIs, and they really they look cool, pew pew maps, all that kind of stuff. And I've been in plenty of SOCs where they have some sort of a pew pew map up there, because when the execs come, that goes up on the screen, because now the execs know, hey, look, our SOC does stuff.
Something's happening.
Yeah, but when you look at the data that's there, it's not necessarily practitioner focused, or it's not easy to get to the data you need to make it easy to make decisions when you're working through an interface, right?
I'll post a link to the video because I think it's interesting, Michael, your explanation, but like pretty but useless, practical but maybe boring. There's got to be maybe I've oversimplified, but I feel like those are the extremes, right? You've got stuff that I remember. This may be taking us back a bit. I remember when I was still with Optiv, we had an RSA one year. We had a couple of startup guys come in and pitch us this product. It was an EDR tool. It had the owl as the logo. You guys all know who I'm talking about. And they had the world's most amazing, like that GUI was awesome. It made sense. It was intuitive. Like you could just look at it and go, oh, I know what to do next. And then like somewhere between there and them disappearing, things got complicated, obviously. But there are really, I think is it endemic to our practice that it's really hard to absolutely nail the practical versus visual aspect of things.
The crossing point where it would.
Yeah, like where does because Sam's right. I've been in GUIs where you're like, this is really pretty, but it's actually telling me nothing. Like I got to go I got to go command line if I want something to work. And then there's like that, like I remember the very first iteration of the Symantec SIEM. Like the UX was just like it made you want to throw the thing out the window, but it was actually kind of useful for its time. before its time, right? And so why is this so hard to get right?
I mean, my take on it is that the crossing point is not actually where you want to be. So because I much prefer, and I'm not thinking, I mean, usability is one thing. So there's in my video, I talk about UI and I talk about UX. So UX, user interface versus user experience. Those are two different things. User experience, yeah, you absolutely need to have something that is easy to use, that, to your point, gives you kind of a, I know where to go next type of thing. And I think there are a couple of vendors out there, especially on the EDR side, who have nailed that really, really well, or at least did in, their first few versions. But
right.
But my thing is always practicality of the UI, not necessarily the UX. And that's what I talked about more in the video, which was around what are the metrics that you're giving me. So we've all heard, or the, the data that you're giving me, maybe not just metrics, but data. We've all heard vanity metrics and things like that. And to Sam's point earlier, being in a SOC where you see, things up on the wall and it's like, oh, and you want to bring in, especially some of the MDRs where, you want to bring in your customer to show them that you're doing cool stuff, and you show off the big screens and all of that. And when you look close at the screens, you're like, I mean, from a worldview perspective, that's a great data point. From a contextual perspective for my business, that has absolutely no practical value. All it is a marketing piece on the wall. And I think that's what we run into with interfaces a lot of times is you'll see marketing stuff on my personal dashboard. And I'm like, I have no desire to see how many vulnerabilities you know about in the wild. I want to know what's contextual to our environment. And what I talked about in that video was a customer that I'm advising, a startup that I'm advising, and they went from a nice UI, UX, but it had very little practical value. It was decent, but it was like, if it was down here where it was crossing, or, up here or whatever. We advised them, some other people advised them. They came out with a dashboard that looked really good, solid, easy to use. You can move around, where all your stuff is. And it did cross that line where it should have, which was all of the metrics on there were contextual. They were automatically usable. If that was in my environment, I would be able to go, okay, I know. And it's all specifically to AI governance. So I know how many different AI tools are being used, either through the browser or on the desktop. I know here's my, how many that are applicable, are not applicable, that I've approved in my environment, and here are the ones that aren't, and I can click on those. And it just did a fantastic job. And that's what I'm talking about. You definitely can hit it. Why it's hard, I think, is because we have a bunch of engineers that are building this stuff. Nothing against engineers, I love them, but they're always thinking practical value before they're thinking UX. And then in one of the companies, and I can't remember the name of it, that Sam worked at, they literally had the person that designed the interface on what was that movie?
Minority Report.
Minority
Report. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that friggin' interface, Sam brought it in. Like, they came into our company when I was at Set Solutions, and I was like, holy shit, this thing is awesome. This is the coolest interface in the world. But when I started looking at it, I was like, I'm not sure what to do next. Like, what is this telling me? Like, it was really cool, but it just, so you got both extremes. And why we can't do both, I think a lot of it comes down to who leads the company. Does marketing lead the company, or do engineers lead the company? And if you can't find somebody with both mindsets to bring that in the middle, then you're going to run into one extreme or the other.
But I might argue too, though, user engagement, right? I mean, really what you want is the end user's input as what they, and that's the other problem with those, right? You have users that have different ways of working. So, one SOC's going to work a little different than the other. And so that, that interface might look a little different, or the things that they want to see. So it becomes complex. So the best thing to do is have something that's very flexible on the back end that you can easily engineer or create on the front end, so that you can easily find that value that are specific to your users, right?
Everything you guys are saying, do you guys remember ArcSight?
Oh yeah.
Done a bunch of ArcSight.
Built by engineers, for engineers, only. Like amazing piece of kit, but you handed it to a customer and they'd be like, and all of them said the same thing. I have no idea how to make this work. Like, but so
but
simple.
you just buy a $25,000, you get a use case done, no problem, right? So yeah,
it reminds me of Archer, Iris, on the GRC side.
Exactly the same thing. Yes.
Yeah, and it's still around, and it's a massive ton of value in it, but it takes so much work to get anything out of it and to put in the right modules and everything else.
It's interesting the extent to which the team that runs product has to really be keen on the functionality is driven by an engineering and make sure you get your product requirements a good feedback channel from your customer and your users. I've seen good versions of that, and I've seen bad versions of that. I think in bad versions of that, on the extreme, customers drive, and it's kind of useless, but for different reasons, right? Where it's just too specific for just some use cases. It's impractical to be used in what you're trying to build versus what somebody wants it to be. Let's take the SIM, for example. That's the one that gets beat up on all the time, right? Like, what do you want to see? What is it supposed to do? How do you make it do what you want? Ticketing platforms, SOARs, you were talking CTEM earlier, like all these things, you have to strike that right balance. And it's not necessarily 50-50, I don't think. I'm willing to give a little bit of like visual pleasantry for the fact that it can actually do something. But like going back as far as I can remember, guys, us security people have historically said, GUI, I've got my command line, right? And now it's GUI, I've got my API, and now it's transitioning to API, I've got my MCP. Like it's moving, it's a moving target. We're not crazy on the technical side about the visuals of it, but somebody that cares, and it matters to people. And those that it matters to, it matters a lot to.
Well, I've had conversations with startups that I'm like, you do not need, from a practical perspective, a UI. Like they were all integration. They were complete, like API integration. They were pulling telemetry. They were delivering that telemetry from one spot to another. And I was like, guys, if you create a dashboard, a reporting dashboard, nobody's going to use it, because what you're doing is moving its data from here, telemetry from here to this SIM. Everybody wants to view it in the SIM. You're redirecting engineering resources because you think you need this UI. Now, that being said, if you're a startup that's only doing that to that, you're probably not a product, you're a feature. However,
right.
This is like, don't waste your engineering resources on this, because all anybody's going to do is instrument you into their process, and they're going to use you from here to here. And that's all that you're going to be used for.
So that begs a different question, because I have recently worked for a company that it's living that product living its most practical best life meant that people don't go in, like don't have that tab open or don't have that GUI open very often.
Yep.
Right. So, okay, I get it. You're essentially supplying data and metrics and actions and context and all these things into something else. Cool. But on the occasion that somebody did have to go into their GUI, it had to be ultra precise, because they were going in there for a few specific reasons that were like, things that you can't do outside. And that was never well understood, in my opinion, right? That it was sort of, they built it to be general purpose and not for the specific use cases that you get the like 80% of the time. And so it felt like product management was saying, no, we want, like, I want you in this dashboard. And people were like, that's not how it's going to work. Give me these 3 use cases to everything else I'm doing over here. And that was a big miss. And so you had this push and pull of customers wanting this engineering releasing the product releasing this feature. And you're like, why are these like you're supposed to be doing this? They were kind of doing this, right? And it was very difficult to explain. But that's the other pratfall, I think, is knowing what it is that you like. This comes back to me for like, what is it that you do? What's the value you deliver? And how do you provide value to whoever, to your user? And there's, I can't remember how many times we said this on this podcast. There's too many people that suck at this that are in product management jobs.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to bring that up. Absolutely. I know Sam gets that too. Like Sam and I had a very brief moment where we were both at HP together. And I don't know, Sam, if you remember this, like their product management departments they did not report into the product group that they were in.
Yeah.
So I would specifically.
I remember those conversations, Michael.
Yeah. I was at Fortify On Demand. The product manager worked for a product management group that reported up to a big higher level product manager or whatever.
HP software.
Yeah. Up higher. And it both drove us crazy and also proved to be very useful in some ways, because the fact that they did not rely, or they weren't beholden to the unit leader, the business unit leader, and they weren't beholden to the developers. They were beholden to the customer. Now, could that get out of hand? 100%. Like customers want stuff all over the place. They're like, their brains are going all over. They're trying to solve a billion problems. It's like they're going to ask for every feature under the sun. So you had to have a good product manager that would prioritize stuff and not do, we can have that next week for you type of thing. So that structure was interesting. But if you had a good one, and we did at HP Fortify On Demand, we had a really good product manager, Scott. He did a really good job of that. And he would put together, him and a guy named Dylan would put together a hell of a customer advisory board to do that. So if you got a good one, like it works out well. So.
I remember FOD. Those are some good days.
I miss those days. Bad. Jason, Daniel, Jason Haddix, Daniel Miesler, David Nestor, Greg Patton.
I haven't talked to Nestor in forever, but I just had Miesler on the pod a couple episodes ago.
That's how Miesler and I got to know each other really, really well, was working together there. So that was good days.
Yeah. It's interesting, but like you bring up a really interesting point is where you get your direction from matters, right? Like what drives that product, and I think where you start from a initial, I don't know, where you kick off the product, right? What do you do first? Do you develop a MVP that is functional but maybe not particularly pretty, or do you just go to show something that looks cool that doesn't actually function? Because I've seen both, and I've seen both be relatively successful, to be frank. But I think it's harder to meet the whims and whimsy of all of your buyers when the functionality isn't there, because it could be gorgeous and extremely simple to use and look at and intuitive and all those happy words. It doesn't function it doesn't do the thing that you want it to do well. And that excitement is very short-lived.
Well, if you don't have your product management engaging with customers and getting that direct feedback, they're in an echo chamber, and then they're going to go, then it gets aligned with marketing. Then they're going to go out and tell other sales people in the next release, hey, look at this really cool stuff we're doing. And they're going to go out and tell all the customers, look at all this really cool stuff we're doing. And all the customers are going to be like, so what? Right. And it's not, you want the customer to be the salespeople. You want the customer out there telling their peers at the other company going, this thing's badass. It works. Like, we love this thing. That's what you want. And so if you're not taking that customer feedback, it's a huge, huge miss. And to your point, Michael, like if you too much stuff, right, you have to prioritize. And I've had situations where customers wanted to put a round peg in a square hole type thing and all that, right? It's just not, also got to know where to delineate and say, okay, we do not do that. That's not our thing, right?
What's the role of
if you can prioritize?
What's the role of the analyst community? Because I have some thoughts on this. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's a whole nother topic, but it depends on what analyst you're talking about. So I will,
Right.
I won't name the analyst company for fear of getting sued. I'll just say that they had two different types of analysts. They had one analyst that was an on the ground analyst that worked with customers all the time and got
Yep.
great feedback. And those are the analysts I loved and enjoyed to talk to because they almost all of them, I think to a T, all of them were former practitioners, and they moved into that kind of role, and they were considered like junior analysts, but they were the ones that actually knew what was going on. Then you had the analysts that were in their ivory tower. They come up with fancy names for stuff and like have no clue. It's basically, and this is no shade on like people in education or stuff, but a lot of times they're just not burdened by practical or real reality, right? And so you can come up with really cool stuff that way. Like if you're not burdened by that, then, you know, really good stuff can come out of it. But if all you're doing is just coming up with stuff and like looking at trends and not really having good practical discussions, and I've talked to these folks before, those ivory towers, and they don't listen. All they do is want to talk, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I did analyst relations at Alert Logic with Misha, and I had very bad experiences to where I wanted to take a shower with some of the people at the top. And then, but the people on the ground, like those are fantastic analysts, and I loved, and I would get so much value out of them, as much or more than I gave to them, I would get back.
I don't know what to make of that. You saying you wanted to take a shower with the people at the top, like that.
Not with, after I talked to them.
Thanks, Sam. Somebody
I should have been clear.
It's you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. I should have been more clear after the fact.
Speaking of adding value.
I mean, you know, it's a $10,000 bill or you have to take a shower. I don't know. We probably need to cut that part out.
No, there's no cuts. I'm sorry. You're stuck with it. You said it's out
gosh.
there.
All right. Well, there went my career.
But listen, I totally get though. The as you were talking, I was like, yes, we have so many academics that end up in those roles, and it's just academic exercise, right? You get a PhD in something, and then you go join an analyst firm as a senior somebody, and suddenly you're giving advice to people that are looking at you going, that's not how that works. And you're like, no, but that's how it should work. You're like, no, that's like, I've had those conversations too, to be fair. I did ARPR when I was at HP, and man, there are conversations that Celeste brought me into that I don't, sometimes you just sit there and go, I have nothing to add to this, because the only thing I'm going to say is you're an idiot. There were so many of those where you just sort of go, what? Are we? Am I being punked right now? Where's Ashton Kutcher? Like, what's happening? What's going on?
Let's go real old school and say, where's Alan Funt?
But somebody's buying those reports, and somebody's talking to those executives to drive tools that their users may not want, or their employees may not want, just because they talk to an analyst. And that's unfortunate. That's
how you get some of this stuff, though, right? You get these. I mean, look, let's resurrect a funny horse. Remember that Norse company with the really cool pew 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 pew?
I was just looking them up actually about earlier when we were talking about it. Yeah, Norse cybersecurity. Yep.
And everybody's like, "Wow, that's amazing!" It meant literally made up, completely nonsense.
Look, the coolest thing I'm going to say, I'm going to give them credit, because there was an open source project called Pew Pew that came out of that, and in 2013 or 14, Sam, I can't remember, we used that for our capture the flag for our CTF at HUSECCon back in the day.
Yep.
And we based it all, that was a war games theme. And the final flag was, we had a big TV screen up in the village, and it used Pew Pew Map to recreate the launch. They had the launch code at the bottom of it. And then whoever got the final flag, the launch code filled out, and all the cyber attacks started happening. And that was another FOD guy, Danny, that helped us write that. And so if it wasn't for Norse, Pew Pew would not have got created, and we wouldn't have been able to use that for our CTF. So
and we never would have had threat butt. We never would have had threat butt either. Right?
Oh God.
Remember threat butt.
Don't get a bunch of old guys as security guys, right? So don't do that.
Get off my lawn.
Oh God. Oh, anyway, so I think there's a lot of, I think that's a bunch of really good points that we just like wrapped up sort of quickly. But where do we find ourselves as a lot of the tools now suddenly move and incorporate AI? Is it a help? Is it a hindrance? Is it of no consequence? And maybe I want to, because you brought CTEM up at the beginning of our pre-record conversation. Maybe we go there, right? Like, what are you showing me? Why are you showing it to me? And how are you showing it to me are all relevant, but not equally relevant.
Yeah. So what we talked about before we pre-recorded, I brought up CTEM because where I think some of the vanity metrics and vanity dashboards came from originally were some of the vulnerability management companies. And look, it is what it is. I'm not knocking them. What they didn't, we really didn't have a good way back then of providing contextual information around the vulnerabilities. Like the tech just didn't exist where you could really dig in. It was very much I'm going to scan, or the closest you could come with contextual information was being able to have a vulnerability management company that had an agent that would go on your desktop. But that still didn't provide good contextual information. So what you had to do is you had to have an ability to have agents, and you had to have the ability to scan everything, not just endpoints, but all your network devices and all that. And then you had to some kind of way bring all of that together to give you some kind of context so you could prioritize. But generally, prioritization all came around what the CVSS score was on it or whatever, right? This is a 10, so you got to take care of it, even though in your environment it probably was a 2.3 or something, because it may not even existed in your environment. So I think that's where that started. What I'm seeing now with CTEM, and this, I think, is directly enabled in a lot of ways by AI. I don't think AI affects vibe coding and stuff. Can you get AI to give you a cool interface that is, user friendly and stuff? Maybe it can do a little bit better of a job than some people, but I don't think ultimately that's where it's going to have the effect. I think the effect is the ability to take information from your infrastructure and from your network and compile that and make sense of it a lot quicker than humans can, to say, this particular vulnerability is in your environment and it's reachable. And if you clean it up, you have something that maybe on CVSS was a 7.2, but in your environment is in a critical infrastructure part of your company and is absolutely going to be devastating if it's taken advantage of. So like I said in the pre-recording, even though CTEM stands for continuous threat evaluation, or
exposure management.
There we go. Sorry, my brain just locked. Continuous threat exposure management. I like to think of it in smaller fashion as contextual threat exposure management, because it's telling you not just what's CVSS, not just what's on the KVE, but what's in your environment, if it can be exploited. And if it can't be exploited, if it's not really reachable, do you need to clean it up? Yes, but you don't need to prioritize it. I think that's where AI provides most of the value, because most of those companies are using that in some way, shape, or form to be able to figure that out in a much quicker fashion.
And AI needs the data to do it. So, there again, you go back to customer experience. The customer input. Well, there you have it, right? The customer has an opportunity to put input here, and that can be part of the equation, which could make things better. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen a new tool, big security tool that's been developed by AI for us all and it's going to solve all the problems. But, maybe we'll see something someday. I'm sure we will, not just leveraging AI, but actually developed by, and there'll be some interesting conversations that'll be a little different at that point.
I think we're gonna need to just sort of stay grounded in, there are certain ways that we as a user of anything think. Like, our brains go left to right, top to bottom, right? So the most important thing you're going to need to show me is in the top left-hand corner. That's where my eyeballs go first. That's just the way my brain is wired. Like that's just, and that's the same for a lot of people. Colors matter, spacing matters. The way things are laid out matter.
I think the easiest thing to have an effect on somebody, at least for me, is to just give me an option between light mode and dark mode. Like if you only create one or the other, and I don't have an option because I love dark mode, but I know a lot of other people hate it and it messes with their eyes. To your point, like it has to do with user experience and being flexible, like Sam was saying earlier. But I think AI can help there just from a flexibility standpoint. But you're right. I mean, I think you kind of have to bring it down to some of those first principles instead of just saying what can AI do to make this all flashy and everything.
So I know people we tend to use UI and UX interchangeably in some places, and sometimes we treat them as the same thing. But I think the interface, the user interface, right, the way that the human or the intended user, it's not necessarily human anymore, it is able to interact, brings about the experience, right? So UX follows UI, I think, if I'm thinking through it logically. Right, the experience is a result of the interface. So we have to have, like, there's certain rules that exist, not because for layout and cleanliness and contrast and colors and all the other things, but ultimately it's give me the thing that I care about the most, show me the workflows, show me the things that I need to do, and why it matters and what it matters, and then give me an easy way to go do my work, whatever that work is. You think that's pretty intuitive, but that's actually kind of hard.
Because you're designing for people. I mean, it's the one thing that you put forward and looks most logical. It's somebody's going to break it or somebody's going to do something different. That doesn't make any sense to me. You're dealing with meat space instead of cyberspace. So it just is what it is.
You think that's going to change? I wonder if that's going to change any as computers become the user for some of these things, like computers using computers.
You don't need a GUI at that point, do you?
You need gibber speak or whatever it's called, or I mean,
that sounds like an API to me. That sounds, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's communicating.
They're ingesting telemetry and doing their own internal visualization. They don't need a dashboard to do that for them. They can,
but it's still
dashboards.
But so there's still a UI UX there, right? The interface is just an MCP server or an API library or something. The experience then is how practical and usable is that? Right? Do you have to make 27 calls to get a task accomplished, or can you do it in one? Right. So
I liken it to like when we finally do reach having self-driving cars completely 100%. Like, I mean, people will still drive their own cars to some degree, but like when you read, what does the UI and UX become for a person? All they have to do is say, get me to here. And then the rest of the time you're watching a movie. It's the same thing with AI. Speaking to AI, I need to probably see a result, or I need to have some way of inputting, which could just be me prompting over voice, saying I need this to happen, and you do what you're supposed to do, and then give me the result. Same thing with driving from one place to another. I need to get to the grocery store. I'll create the best route. I'll get you there the most efficiently without tolls, let's say. And then once I get there, that's my end result. So to me, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, before we let you go, Michael, talk to me about what you're putting on there.
So I've got a shirt. Oh, you mean putting? Okay, I was confused. I thought so. Cyber. Let's see what we are. So Cybersec Community.
Yeah.
So this is cyber without an E, if you can see that, because we're cool like that. Sam's probably
because that's the hip thing to do. I got it.
Good job. To do. Well, the other thing I came up with is community yields better resilience. So that one's a cool thing. So it's Cybersec.
If you can tell, he's the GUI designer on the team.
I'm the GUI designer. Everybody else does the practical stuff. Yeah. No, Cybersec Con is a conference that we're running down here in Houston on September 15th and 16th of 2026 at the George R. Brown Convention Center. So Cybersec Con came out of HUSEC Con. So this was a conference that Sam and I started putting on way back in 2010. And the last one technically was last year in 2025. And that was our 15th, or we started on 0, so technically our 16th anniversary. And Cybersec Con is our next iteration of that. The reason we changed the name from HUSEC Con to Cybersec Con is the HUSEC Con was very much a well-loved and respected, essentially a regional cybersecurity conference that we started that went from 120 people to last year we had over 3,000 people. But what we started to see was a whole ton of people coming from outside of Houston and outside of Texas. So we was like, we got to change this to show that we're a national cybersecurity conference. So
I'm looking at my challenge coin case because I still have my HouseCon challenge coin in there.
HUSECCon.
HUSECCon. Sorry,
it's like Houston, not HouseCon, but that's a whole joke. So yeah, we're rooted in Houston, but we serve a national audience. That's a big thing for us. We'll always be in Houston. We really want to build. We're building a community and a conference to serve nationwide and even internationally as well. We've had people come from all over the world for it. Right now we're 2 days long. We've got Win Schwartau coming out to open us up for our opening keynote. We got Andy Ellis, who's kind of a part of the community and he's doing a keynote. We've got Joe Marshall and Ann. How do you say her last name, Sam?
De Lanella
coming out to close us out. We've got Sam, 120 speakers or something like that.
So we have 13 tracks over the 2 days, and so
good Lord,
that's over 100 that's over 100 sessions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of content that gets. When we record everything and we put it up for free, right? It's our mission's different, right? We're not here to try to be some big, for-profit conference type thing. We are here to serve the community, build it, give them a place. Our ticket prices are low, exactly. We've always kept them low because of that. We want it to be accessible for everybody. When we bring new talent in, we started a little thing in there called YouthSecCon last year, which brought a bunch of high schoolers in to introduce them to cyber and give them the vibe, like have them walk the floor and everything, the exhibit hall and all that, and just pick up swag and do some cool things, pick locks, do all kinds of cool hacker stuff. And they left with hopefully we're going to, out of those 75 kids, we'll probably have a good chunk of them go the route of cyber. And with that, and there's a scholarship fund that we've got through one of the organizations that we work with, and so it's just a whole lot of stuff. It's very mission driven in terms of what we're doing.
I love it. Yeah, all
right. Cybersec Careers is that nonprofit that we work with, that we connect with to do the scholarship, do YouthSecCon. But we've got villages, we've got workshops, we've got a ham radio in our villages. We're probably going to have a full-blown bulletin board system that you can connect to and dial in, like old school stuff this year. We've got lock picking. We've got AI village. We've got all kinds of good stuff in there.
Man, I wish I had my 2400 baud modem still.
You'll be able to connect directly up to it, but we do have modems that'll be built into it, and I don't know if it'll be integrated this year, but we got a PBX system that'll be.
Oh, geez. All right.
Connected, so
that's reason enough to go. All right. One more time, date and place.
September 15th, 16th, 2026, the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. That's a 2-day con. And if you want the details on everything, go out to cyberseccon.com. And remember, that's cyber without the E. So CYBR seccon.com.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. It has been great having you aboard. I will probably see you there.
Would love for you to come out, man.
Great.
Get Dave to come out, dude. He keynoted one year, and I had to get him to come back, so I need him back out there.
There you go. So I can drag him kicking and screaming to another fun conference. All right, boys. It's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Go check out CyberCon. The E is silent.
It's not there. It's gone. It doesn't exist.
It's gone. We've eliminated it.
I like that one.
I'm hilarious. Oh boy. All right. that'll do it. We'll catch you guys another time, another place on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Michael, Sam, thanks for joining. Folks, thanks for listening. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye. See ya.